How's it going, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. Well, can't believe this movie's out. Delays, COVID, theaters are opening again, you know the drill. Today we're going to be talking about Tenet. Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan, stars John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, the story follows Washington, who journeys through a twilight world of internal espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. This film has had quite the journey when it comes to delays, and it's been a long time coming, and you know, it would have been nice to get this movie as a straight-to-digital release, but of course, Christopher Nolan insisted that it be released in theaters, just like the rest of his films. Now that one of the most anticipated films of 2020 is out in theaters, I must ask the question again, was it really worth the wait? Yeah, it was. What I really like about Nolan is how he's able to take simple concepts and turn it into something unique and fun to watch. Tenet is definitely a complex journey from start to finish, but doesn't take that long to figure out as the story progresses. Of course, I wanted to make sure I understood the film fully, and I had to do a little bit of additional research afterwards, just like I do with all of his films. There's a lot to talk about with Tenet, so let's get started. Let's just say that the trailer did a great job in not revealing too much of the plot, and while I won't go into the in-depth details in this video, I will say that Tenet is Nolan's take on a spy film. And it was interesting to me considering that the trailer didn't really hint at that, but I'm honestly okay with that considering the infamous reputation that some trailers have. Also, with the added elements of the reverse moments, or inversion as it's called in this movie, it definitely makes for a unique story and for some exciting moments throughout. In the trailer, you're able to see some of the simple things in reverse, like bullets being unshot, some of the fight scenes, and the cars driving backwards. It's honestly really impressive, and it's quite the experience when you watch it. And I know that some of the scenes were shot with the actors performing their actions in reverse, but with something like the fight scene in the hallway, that's something that I really want to know the story behind, because it's honestly amazing. It's almost like Inception, how the concept of dreaming's foundation is laid out in the beginning, but as the story progresses, it gets more and more complex. But as the whole concept of inversion goes more in depth, there are plenty more impressive shots that take place, with one of the most notable is seeing how some people are able to move forwards in time while everything else moves in reverse. Knowing the filmmaking methods that Nolan takes, I'm more curious now than ever to see where he took a practical approach rather than a CGI approach, and sometimes in Tenet it's really hard to tell. And you know, I'm sure that the DVD is going to explain a lot of that in the bonus features, but it's just too bad that we can't have it now. Stubborn Nolan, probably going to get more people infected with this movie. And of course, upon multiple viewings, it's definitely something that will get better and better as you watch, and you'll have a better understanding of the concepts, enhancing the experience. It isn't as complex as some of his past films, but is very noteworthy. However, when they introduce the concept of inversion in this movie, they save a lot of it for the third act of the film, which by the way is really, really fun to watch. They'll throw in the inversion occasionally during the first hour and a half, but most of that time is dedicated to the characters just giving exposition-heavy dialogue, as well as explaining how the world works, which by the way is a lot more confusing than inversion. They keep on throwing around this phrase, "We live in a twilight world. We live in a twilight world. We live in a twilight world," and that's all the explanation you get on the world. I know that Robert Pattinson may have been living in a twilight world at some point, but honestly, to me, it's kind of funny how the whole development of the world is a lot more confusing than the inversion. And of course, as always, I think the cast does a really great job in this movie. John David Washington and Robert Pattinson had some great moments in this movie and seem to work really well together. There's even a little moment near the end of the movie that helped elevate their friendship, and it was a pretty touching moment. Also, Kenneth Branagh really worked well as the villain, just like he does with other things. And while I think the cast had some amazing performances in this movie, something that was highlighted is how much character they don't have. Nolan really likes to make his movies plot-centric, which is fine, but at the same time, when it comes to his characters, they're really only there to drive the story, and it ends up making them really one-dimensional. Inception is a prime example of how little development Nolan puts in his characters. Each one of the characters in that movie already had their specific roles, but that's really all you get on them. When it comes to the characters in Tenet, their dialogue is really exposition heavy, and you never really get to learn a whole lot about them. And probably the only character in this movie that actually had some development going on was Elizabeth Debicki's character as Kat. She's the only one that really has some sort of backstory, which helps drive the story in the end. But other than that, you never get to learn a whole lot about anyone else. And what I find really funny about the characters, particularly with John David Washington, is his name, which he doesn't have. As if having no development to his character wasn't enough already, if you go ahead and look at the cast list for Tenet, you'll see that John David Washington's name is straight up the protagonist. I thought that was a little bit silly considering the rest of the characters in the story had names, but Washington was the only one who we already know nothing about and is the one with no name, but the role he plays in this movie. I probably would have been less surprised and maybe a little bit entertained if Nolan just went ahead and gave the characters names like these. And this other thing, which I thought was only me at first, is how crappy the sound mixing is. I don't know what it is, but with Nolan's films, he really likes to make it to where the characters are talking, but he puts so much emphasis on the sound, and you really can't understand a single word they're saying. This happens a lot during the beginning of the movie where the ambiance just overpowers the characters' dialogue, but there's other moments in the film where the characters wear masks, for example, and their voices are so muffled that you can't hear what they're saying. And on top of all that, they even have the sound effect playing in the background, which makes it very, very annoying. I watched this movie twice, and even on the second viewing, I still couldn't understand what some people were saying, and it doesn't help that some of them have heavy non-American accents. It's almost like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises with that stupid mask and Tom Hardy's comedic performance.
I am the League of Shadows. I'm here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny.
Nolan had said try not to understand Tenet, but to feel it. And I'll admit that the soundtrack is pretty unique for the moments of reverse, and they can immerse you. But it gets really annoying when characters are being overpowered by so many factors that you can't understand what the hell they're saying. I know that Nolan wants people to experience his films, but there's that other group of people that are going to try to understand it by listening to the dialogue, which they can't do because there's so many stupid sounds that overpower everything, and it just brings the film down. I mean, throughout this movie, you'll just see characters talking in a scene and just saying whatever they need to say. Nolan likes to do this in his films. So yeah, despite that, I can't say that Tenet is one of Nolan's best films, but it certainly stands out in how unique and innovative it is. While most of his cliches can really hurt the movie at times, Tenet is still an immersive experience with a story that's exciting to watch. He really is a genius when it comes to how his films are made, as well as how he lays out the concepts. In my opinion, while I do think that Tenet can be enhanced by watching it in theaters, I honestly don't think it's worth it to bring so many people in, especially during this time. And honestly, I think Tenet could have done just as well if it was just sent directly to streaming. It's nothing like Inception or Interstellar, which should definitely be watched in theaters, but Tenet still is pretty unique and is quite a spectacle in its own way. So with all that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give Tenet a backwards 8 out of 10.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet.
If you're going to go and watch this movie and risk it all, just please wear a mask and stay healthy, because I'm pretty sure we're going to see a spike in cases as soon as this movie is released, probably a week after. But that's Nolan for you. He just doesn't care and just wants you to see the theater experience during a pandemic. But anyways, if you guys have seen Tenet, I'd like to know what you think. If you loved it, if you hated it, or if you haven't seen it, if you don't care to watch it, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this review. Look forward to more very soon. And until the next one, you guys, I'll see you later.